I'm Dr. Bettina Tornatora, and I'm one of the coaches with Powerful Practices International. I'm really excited to be sharing with you the 7 essentials to effective chiropractic communication. Chiropractic communication is something that so many of our clients have told us is a challenge for them in practice. And after 21 years in practice, I can assure you that I've experienced what great communication is and the effects of not so great communication. And communication within our teams and outside of our teams, with our clients, with our community. And what we know as an organisation at Powerful Practices International is that this is a vital part to chiropractic success and also for you to have life success, because communication is happening every day and all day. So I'm looking forward to sharing these essentials with you, and at the end of this video I'm going to offer you an opportunity to come and spend some time with us at Powerful Practices International and all our coaches and share even more gems and explore these essentials in greater depth. So what are the 7 essentials to communicating chiropractic with great certainty? I'm going to give you 7 categories and we're going to touch on each of those. The first one, understanding people. It's people we're communicating with. Number 2, effective communication and what that looks like. Number 3, your influence and persuasion. Number 4, conflict and negotiation. Number 5, presentation skills. Number 6, communicating research and daily languaging in our practice. And number 7, by no means the last or the least, team communication. So now I'd like to touch on those individually. And as I go along, you'll see that we have an associated PowerPoint, which will give you some great questions to ask within your team and of yourself. So let's move to the first one. Understanding people. To effectively communicate with anyone, we need to understand how they hear us. We need to understand what are the elements of communication and what are the types of people that we're communicating to. Some of you will have heard the terminology that people fall into various categories in the way that they communicate and like to be communicated with. These could be described as a visual person, someone who primarily relies on their eyes and the things that they see. An auditory person, someone who relies on sound and hearing and detail. And a kinesthetic person, that is a person who is experiencing communication as a body experience. They need to feel the communication in some way. When we get a greater understanding of these 3, we can then tailor our communication very specifically to what that person needs. So for example, if we're communicating with a visual person, diagrams, pictures, pointing things out on X-ray would be enormously beneficial to supporting those people to understand our message. With an auditory person or who has predominant auditory communication, those people require more detail. They require longer explanations of what it is that you want them to hear. Pictures, diagrams and demonstrating things on X-ray often with these people is least effective because they need to hear the information clearly. When we're communicating with those who predominantly are kinesthetic, these are people who need to really feel our presence. These people may require examples that require body movement. So demonstrating ranges of motion may be a great way to get your message across. Using a model which has movement in it that can be touched and felt would be a great way of communicating with these people. Now, we all have elements of these three in us, and we all require all of those elements, of course. But the quicker we can understand how someone needs to be communicated to, effectively we begin speaking their language. One of the tasks we undergo with our coaching clients is often helping them to understand what their own primary method of communicating is. Because when we know what our normal, our thing that we do on a daily basis very naturally is, we then understand those areas we need to work. So that understanding ourselves, understanding the people who we want to get our message is vitally important to being effective in our communication. Key questions to ask are: how do you communicate? What are the primary forms of communication? So our visual, our auditory and kinesthetic when you're communicating with someone. And how do you establish rapport to get that message across? Great questions to ask within your practice and of yourself. Step 2 in our essentials is effective communication. Now, this is about getting the message across in the most efficient and effective way. Now, again, it is about what it is you want to communicate, being very clear on that message and not allowing any dilutions to your message. So this is about looking at, what do you say? What are the words that you use? How do you deliver the message? When and who delivers the message in your communication? Sometimes communication is best delivered multiple times by multiple people. Sometimes it's small amounts compounding on others and growing into a body of knowledge that then delivers the message. But the most important step in this is to actually make the decision of what it is you're trying to communicate. Many times in practice, the message is diluted because the team or the chiropractor doesn't know what the fundamental message that they are trying to deliver is. And it gets clouded in the extra sounds, in the extra noise, in all the other things that are going on within the practice. So understanding the elements of your message, knowing whose job it is to deliver it, and working on making it the most efficient that you can. Again, working with our points in step 1, having practiced and role-played the different ways that you would be effective in your communication with different kinds of people. Now, the other type of communication that we want to be effective is when we speak one-to-many. When we hold our workshops, we want to make sure that we have utilised this precious time that we have with people who may or may not be clients in communicating chiropractic effectively and making an impact on them. On our PowerPoint, we've asked key questions in regard to this. The first one is, how do you create your communication space? What is that space? How does it look in your practice? Is there so much going on that it's not a space at all? The next one is effective words and efficiency in communication. Practice your words. Know the power of the words themselves and in the delivery of them. And remembering the last one, written and spoken communication. Remembering everything we have in our practice, every written word, every form, every brochure, every piece of information we deliver is part of our communication. These need to be congruent within the practice and effective right throughout. And a lot of practices have a lot of written information that isn't utilised by the team. Use what you have. There are tools at your disposal, probably right now in your practice, that you're not utilising. Find them and use them. The next area is influence and persuasion. Now persuasion is the first one I'll look at. When we're speaking of chiropractic, in and out of our practices, we are persuading someone to a way of thinking. Sometimes we're just persuading them to consider a different paradigm of health, but there is an element of persuasion in that. And that persuasion is going to be influenced by a myriad of factors. But the ones that we can control are the way that we deliver the message, our level of consistency and congruency with our message, and ensuring that we have an audience that is ready for the message we have to deliver. One of the things that comes often with experience is chiropractors understanding when the opportunities for persuasion and for life-changing messages to be delivered and when that appropriate time is. And now influence. We know as chiropractors that our message and communicating it effectively is something that will influence the health of humanity. And the influence we have will be, and the extent of it will be, the level of effective communication that we can have. If we want greater influence, we need greater communication. If we want to influence more people, we need to put ourselves in the situation where we influence more people with our communication. So these two are closely tied. The greater the influence we have, the more likely we are to persuade someone to consider this as a lifestyle. And this is something that we hear so many chiropractors are requiring more of in their practices. So, how do we get this? How do we influence? One of the things that is paramount is our level of presence. Are we really in the room that we're communicating in? Are we really 100% committed to the message that we're conveying? Now, this has lots of elements. If we want to be 100% committed, we need to be living this lifestyle ourselves and knowing that it's the truth for us. It is said that you cannot communicate what you do not own, and the level of influence will be largely dependent on the level of ownership you have of your message. Communicate what you know to be the truth. On our PowerPoint, we ask you to look at your presence and your focus. What's distracting you in your practice? Are you able to be fully present? Or do you need to look at the influences that influence you before you begin to communicate? The other consideration is leadership levels. What is your level of leadership? Author John C. Maxwell discusses 5 levels of leadership, and that is something that is of great value for chiropractors to understand within their teams and with looking at their level of influence they wish to have. The last one is your sphere of influence. And your sphere of influence begins internally with you and goes outward, inside-out philosophy, the way that we communicate chiropractic. Your sphere of influence starts centrally. Begin by influencing your environment and then travel outward into your community, the world, and beyond. The next area is conflict and negotiation. Now, much as we don't want to think that we will have to manage conflict and negotiation in our worlds, they are a part of life. There will be conflict in opinion, in viewpoint. Perhaps it's even a conflict in the paradigm of health that we're dealing with our clients. But it does arise. And having a strategy to manage the conflict is going to be paramount in how quickly you can return to your presence and your focus that we discussed in the last point. Now, what about negotiation? We are constantly in a process of negotiating. We're negotiating our day, we're negotiating our time, we're negotiating our money, we're negotiating our practice and our teams. It is a constant negotiation. And being able to communicate effectively in any negotiation, whether it is with a chiropractic client or outside in your regular life, is an absolute essential skill. What managing conflict and negotiation do is minimise the impact, deal with things, take ownership of the situations, and get us back to our primary purpose, and whatever that might be. Vital parts to understanding how to get back to our centre and getting our message across. Now, in our PowerPoint, some key questions are: where's the conflict in your practice? Is it with your clients? Is it with your team? Is it the influence of your outside conflict on your practice? What steps can you take to prevent conflict? What things do you need to look at that are actually going to prevent conflict from occurring? Now, sometimes this is a matter of assessing when conflict has happened and going back and saying, what did I learn here? And what could I do to make this different moving forward? And the last element is, where is the consistency in your communication? Looking at conflict and negotiation, we often see situations arise because there's an inconsistency in our communication. What is the front of house or the CA team and the back of house or the DC team? Where is the communication and how does that look? And is there conflict or inconsistency here? Our next section is presentation skills. Now, chiropractors are presenting all the time. We present to our teams, training, communicating our systems and procedures. We present to our clients every single time that we deliver an explanation of chiropractic, or we deliver a report of findings, or set a schedule of care. We are presenting information. This is an important skill. When we do our workshops, we need to know our key presenting skills and where we are powerful in our presentation. And then if we go into the community or we put our information in a forum that the community will see, we need to understand that we are presenting. Often what we're presenting is paradigms that we know to be the truth. So effectively communicating that is of vital importance. Know who you're wanting to present to. Know what it is exactly that you want them to take home as a message. And understand that there has to be an element of joy in the way that you present things to get your message across. When we look at presenting skills on our PowerPoint, what do you do? What do you and your practice present to the world? So how does your practice look? How do you look in it? What is it, the visual, auditory and kinesthetic experience of your practice? Number 2, verbal and non-verbal communication. There are things that are being communicated in your practice that involve no words. What are they? What is the message being sent that you may or may not be meaning to send? And when you present inside-out presentations, again, communicating the truth from within and allowing that to flow out. The next section is communicating research and our daily languaging in our practice. Now, with communicating research, we need to stay current. We need to know that we're delivering the most up-to-date, the best quality research that we can. And part of this is also knowing the research done by other organisations and being able to communicate effectively and often explain that research to our clients. The second part of this is our daily languaging. Our languaging in our practice is of vital importance. Often we're asked, what is the best way of saying this? How can I best communicate this? And the best way we know to develop this is to come up with a script based on knowing what you want your message to be. Then role-playing that with your teams so that when the opportunity arises, it feels natural and it feels smooth and it doesn't feel like you're reaching for words because you've done them so many times. Now, this is not about robotics. It's not about creating clones of each other within the practice, but it is about communicating the message. So if our purpose is to deliver a certain message, that it's consistently delivered in a similar way throughout the practice. Now, this is not just CA scripts, if that's what you're thinking. This is scripting and languaging specific communication for all team members. As chiropractors, we need to understand what our message is and have practiced that so that when we deliver it, we are not thinking about the words, we're delivering them with a level of congruency and consistency. Now, in our PowerPoint, let's stay current with the research, making sure that you are subscribing to websites or journals that are going to keep you current. Have your documents prepared. Have your information ready. When you come across something in the research, have it ready to deliver to clients or post it on your website so that you can have it ready to go. And the last one, scripting for all team members. Work as a team. Come up with the best words. It's not about somebody else coming up with them. It's about you working out your purpose for your message and delivering it. The final step in our 7 is team communication. So if I were to ask you, what is the communication method that you use within your team to get a message across? Do you have systems and procedures for communication? And within that, are there certain things that get communicated in a certain way and other things which get communicated in a different way? If I were to come and speak to your team, what would they say about the communication within your team? Would they say that it's effective and that messages are complete? See, team communication is not just about keeping our team members happy and making sure that all of the tasks get completed. Team communication is what we use as a tool to get our chiropractic message across effectively. And it is of vital importance. Understanding that each team member is constantly in communication with each other and then out into our communities is of vital importance. Know what your systems and procedures are, and if you don't have them or a communication breaks down in an area, identify it and create something to make sure it doesn't happen again. On our PowerPoint, questions to ask are what, how, and where does communication happen in your practice? What does it look like? Do you have written communication? Is it via email? Is texting appropriate? Is email appropriate? Is a written note appropriate? And what's the purpose of the communication? Who needs to see it? Systems and procedures for excellent communication in teams. Once you establish a great way of communicating, document it so that everybody knows, and then there is no confusion, because confusion is the enemy of effective communication. And understand the purpose of your communication systems. Know why you have them. If you don't know why you have them, then maybe that area doesn't need the attention that you think it does. Go back to the purpose and why it is important to get the communication within and out of your team very effective. So that's our 7 areas of communicating chiropractic. Are you asking yourself some questions about the way that you communicate? Have you identified some areas that you and your team need some additional work? We expect that you will. This is a comprehensive analysis of communication. And we are so excited that this year we are going to do 2 days of in-depth work with chiropractors and their teams in Melbourne to look at these areas in greater depth. 2 full days gaining mastery in these areas, identifying what you need to do in your practice and in your life to make your communication excellent. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. We want you to have the practice and the life of your dreams. At Powerful Practices International, we have over 100 years of active chiropractic practice experience. We have all experienced chiropractic communication on a myriad of levels, inside, outside, within ourselves. And we can't wait to share this knowledge with you so that you can learn, you can grow, and you can thrive in practice. I really look forward to seeing you there.